Well, everybody, we'll bring the meeting for the Borough of Monaca for February 23rd, 2016 to order. Will everybody please rise for an invocation and remain standing for a flag salute. Mr. DiMarzio.
Thank you, President Booner. Let's bow our heads, please. Dear Father, we thank you for everyone gathered here now. Thank you that you know each one of us by name and has caused us to walk with you. We say that we are dependent on you and our trust is with you completely. As we surrender ourselves in adoration, we ask that you would come by your Holy Spirit and inspire our hearts today. Come fill our lives with your love, fill our conversations with your grace and truth, fill this meeting with your presence. We ask this for your glory and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Come on, will you take the roll call, please?
Mr. Snyder? Mrs. Rossi? Here. Mr. Mulder? Mr. Michael? Mr. Rossi?
Here.
Mr. Schotter?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Present.
Mr. DiMarzio?
Present.
Vice President Zigarelli?
Present.
President Boer?
Present.
Mayor Ammaline?
Mr. Michaels is running late and the mayor is on vacation. Mr. Noller called in sick. Engineers report, Mr. Sadaka.
Good evening. All right, on my report, the 2016 paving project provided the manager with a list of recommendations for the paving and included in it the cost for water line replacements. And based on what I'm not sure if the committee's going to review, the manager will put the final bid package after that. Water treatment plant, electrical redesign, as you remember, we talked about that you have an electrical engineering firm that's basically doing the work for the entire electrical system on your plant. So we're working with them on an as-need basis to support them to put the bid package together. For your MS4, which is basically a permit required to meet with DEP requirement for your storm sewer system. DEP rep came into the borough, did an inspection, provided a report, and we're working with the borough to respond to the comments. CDBG application, we are, based on the direction of the council, putting a package requesting additional ADA ramps for next year's application. It would be due March 18th. We have two annual reports. Every year we have to do these submissions to DEP, one for a wastewater report, one for the water system, and they're both to be done and submitted in the middle of March. And one last thing that's not on the list, I apologize, I didn't add it, is that the manager asked that we look at the pavilion that got damaged from the wind, and we provided a drawing for recommended repairs. If there's anything else, I guess we can.
Now, we're dealing with the insurance carrier on a claim, and we'll have to get a cost to let that work.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know the cost for it.
So,
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Sadaka? Mr. DiMarzio?
Mr. Brewer. I sort of lost track of things myself here, which is easy to do for me. Down at the end of town, at the German Lutheran Cemetery, did you have a chance to look at that wall down there?
Yeah, I apologize, I did not put that on my list.
It's all right.
Sorry.
and we will be discussing that a little further. Rich would like to discuss that, and maybe,
Okay.
is that something executive or?
No.
No, okay.
Okay, I'll wait until.
I could, yeah, if you're willing to wait, I'm willing to wait. Thanks, Tom.
Anything else?
What you would do,
Yeah, we probably should do it now.
Okay. Go, Rich.
You can go first.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Unless you want me to.
I'll let you guys take the
All
lead.
right, I'll go first. I've done a preliminary title search and can't find a deed. There's no record in the courthouse that I could see on my limited search showing where the owner. If you look at the county assessment information page that you could draw up on the website, they list a deed and deed book and page number that doesn't exist. And the reason that they do that is it's a code for saying that we can't and couldn't find a deed for this particular piece of property. So the only way to really try to unravel it, if we can, is to get into a deeper search by searching surrounding properties and asking whether there are clues in those other properties that give us an idea of who owns this parcel that the cemetery is located on. One thing that I did find was that in some other deeds, it's referred to as the Phillipsburg Cemetery. Now, how it came to be that we're said to be the owners of it is, at this point, I'm clueless. If you recall, for those of you that were here, and I don't know that there are too many, maybe 2 or 3 of you, we had a similar problem with the pump house. We occupy the pump house, we pump water from the pump house, we have a sewage treatment plant there. It's been there since the Works Progress Administration in the 1930s. And we didn't have a deed. We looked everywhere. No deed to it, no deed recorded at the courthouse. It's a similar kind of situation. The circumstances here are a little bit different in that we occupied and used the pump house. We don't really occupy the cemetery.
Not yet.
I'm not sure some people want to put us there at times. That's the difference, and I heard mentioned, I don't know if it was Mr. DeMarzio or someone that said that the borough took over the cemetery. Well, we can't take it over in the legal sense of ownership unless we have a deed. We, and under the borough code, could do what we've done on the property. We may not have crossed every T and dotted every I, which is inexcusable under the circumstances when we went in and did some cleanup work. But the T crossing way to do it is to say it's not kept well. We're going to go in, pass a resolution to do that, clean it up, and then file a lien against the owner of the property. So that in the event it's ever sold, graves are moved, what have you, we would then get our money back for the expense of cleaning it up. But to me, that is not an indication that we own it. Just because we did that, in my estimation, is not an indication of ownership. So until we find something more, I think our position with PennDOT should be, you could claim all you want with maps and what have you, until you show something that says we own it, we don't own it.
So, I'm just thinking out loud, I'm not saying that's what's going to, so would that be that you, on behalf of the borough, would send a letter to the Commonwealth, the Department of Transportation, letting them know that that's the conclusion?
I might send them a letter as quickly as they respond to the other complaints that we've had over the last 30 years with them on Pennsylvania Avenue and 17th Street and other streets.
You know where I would be stating the next statement I'll say, is just for the fact that they put us on notice about the wall, which I want to tell you, look, I walked behind it, it does bulge a lot worse than I thought. It looks a lot worse than, we're lucky that this year we're gonna have a very bad cycle of freeze-thaw, but the way it looks, doesn't look good. And if we have like a year or two, you know,
Right,
without anything happening potentially. So I'm just saying, I think the sooner we get back to them and say.
I said that half facetiously.
I know you did.
But,
I'm just saying that the fact that, I think they can maybe move at that point and realize something, if we're not, we're not doing it.
Yeah, I think regardless of ownership, it's going to boil down to where are we gonna get the money?
Sure.
We've already spent $350,000 for a problem that we can't legally and engineering-wise prove was not our problem with what occurred at the sewer line break at the new bridge. This money just doesn't fall off trees, and everybody here understands that, I think. It's not a position of obstinance. We're not trying to be argumentative with them, but it's really a question of funding. Where are we going to get it? They want us to raise taxes to repair a wall that's on property that we can't say we own? So I think we take a non-committal approach until, if council authorizes me to delve into it further, to see what I could uncork, so that when we do speak to them, we could speak with them a little bit more confidently about the ownership.
Do you have any more information on what you looked at?
I think the solicitor angle or explanation will trump mine, so. I'll go
Yeah,
with what he said.
I think we need to be candid on it, as far as your drawings and the sites from PennDOT when they did work, when we did the sanitary upgrades of Marquis Run, all the surveying documents, mapping, you went out and surveyed the site, and based on those maps, it's indicating that that cemetery wall is outside the PennDOT right. Now, ownership is a whole nother issue, and I would strongly concur with the solicitor that we can say that we don't own it. We've been maintaining it, and I believe there is a Pennsylvania act that if a cemetery becomes abandoned, that there's some act that you inherit because you're the municipality and which it belongs.
I haven't found that.
Okay. I believe,
We can go in and clean it up. We could take care of it. We could do remedial work and lien them. But that doesn't mean that it's ours. There's nothing in the borough code that says that.
I remember reading it somewhere, and
If you
we
find
can
it,
find,
then
we can find it.
Yeah, I'll be happy to look
But there's a
at it.
municipal act that states if a cemetery lies within it, it's been, I don't know if there's a legal or court process that mandates it, but there is that. Whether that was ever done to the Monaca Borough, we would have to check those records, and maybe the deed search would convey that. I would think that due to the expense of repairing that wall, it would be prudent for council to at least approve the solicitor to look a little further into the deed. Because I don't think any of us willfully want to incur the cost of repairing that wall. And if that's the case, then authorization to the solicitor to further look at the deed, and simultaneously I'll research the other.
Yeah, if you find
And,
something.
you know, if that
stand to
puts
be
us,
corrected.
if that puts us down another path, then so be it. In light of what Mr. Sadaka indicated, that we're on notice, and where does that put us? Should we be taking some precautionary measure? And I know in my discussions with Tony and Dan Sell on it, a meeting with PennDOT and say, okay, well, yeah, you're putting us on us, but we don't believe that it's our responsibility or our ownership, that they need to come in for them or us. We need to put Jersey barriers down there and restrict that to a single lane and push the traffic away from that. You know,
First of all, it's not our road, so we can't go put anything on a road that's not ours, and it wouldn't be effective, and you would incur liability by doing that. It's like walking into someone else's house that you have no right to be in.
Right, well, we couldn't do it without
They
their
would have,
permission.
they would have to do that. Secondly, you're only liable for that which you own, possess, or control. So if you don't own the property, you don't own the wall, then you don't have any liability if something goes wrong with it.
On the tax map, it shows the borough, right?
Tax maps are just that.
Sure. But that's why, I'm wondering, why did they come to the borough? Is it because of, they probably,
Tax maps are just that. They show taxes, and they might show a parcel, but that does not mean that it's a deed. The only thing that reflects ownership is a deed. Until you show a deed for it or some other conveyance of ownership that wasn't recorded at the courthouse, how could you say you own it? If we had used it, if we had, as a community, held events there, done something on the open spot not occupied by grave sites, it would be a different story, but it's been occupied by the deceased all these years, and to my knowledge, we haven't done anything other than go clean it. Yeah, I'm not really making this, trying to sound like I'm being Tommy technical about it, but this is a very expensive proposition as I see it. I don't look at this as something where you're gonna spend a few $100s. So,
Mr. DeMarge, you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Brewer. Technical. I didn't want to take a position that we took the last time we discussed PennDOT, but I got to bend here a little bit. In doing so, I'm making a motion as well to authorize the solicitor to go forward and delve into this a little more. Because if we just took it upon ourselves to do something down there, then of course, we're gonna assume liability, and it is a high traffic area, and there's all kind of things that can go wrong, and probably will. But there is a solution I had in mind for that. I'm not an engineer or a lawyer, but they need to work with us, is what I'm getting at here. Okay, they've been ignoring us about that plate that we discussed it, Mr. Zigarelli, we just discussed it earlier about that plate here on the main street that's been there forever.
Okay, catch basins.
Yeah, because we're responsible for the catch basin under a state road, but yet we don't have any jurisdiction on the state road. So that's one. And what else am I missing here? They've been ignoring us on a lot of things, is what I'm getting at. It's time for the state, for those people from the state, to start working with us if they want to see results on our end. So,
Hold us.
oh, yeah, how did I forget that one? But they're ignoring us, and I think it needs to be said, and it needs to be made known. However, whatever means, I'm not adept on social media as some of the younger members of council here, but the word needs to be put out there. Hey, we need help. We're not cash rich, at least not anymore. So, I just wanted to say my bit on that. That cemetery down there is kind of like my favorite spot. I mean, not that I want to go down there now, but I do want it, maintained or whatever for historical reasons, if not anything else. But they can't just put the onus on us like this and you expect us to come up with a quick solution to it and fix it. We just don't have that kind of cash. So,
Before you make a
go ahead.
motion, can I recommend that you make the motion and include that Rich sends a letter of update?
Oh, absolutely, yes, that we are taking some kind
Update
of.
what you found out so far.
Yeah, I think it would behoove us that we are taking some kind of action on it. We're not just being negligent.
letter to PennDOT.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll forward you the contact.
Yeah. But, word in such a way that we're reaching out to them, let's work together on this to solve the problem, rather than just passing the buck. Thank you.
So you're gonna make a motion?
Yeah, I make that motion.
Second? Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Is there any other questions for Mr. Sadaka? You can go ahead and go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Tony, you're gonna miss the good part of the meeting.
That's all right.
Want to go ahead.
All right, visitor section, comments in regards to items on the agenda. Comments in regard to items on the agenda. Okay, that section is now closed. Communications, Mr. Leon.
No communications.
Okay, at this time, I need a motion to approve regular meeting minutes of February 9th, 2016.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now need a motion to approve monthly bills.
So moved. Second.
Any questions on the bills? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Manager's report, Mr. Leon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one item to bring to your attention. It's in regards to the CJ Mansion elevator and HVAC project. There's an invoice or a proposal for electrical upgrades and a change order to the project. I also attached some photos for your reference as well, and I have a hard copy here that I'll kind of hold up and pass around. But the electrical meter that they were going to get into the box there, it was showing a placard with a 200 amp service. However, when they pulled the cover off of the meter unit, it was only being fed by a 100 amp wire. And they were amazed at whenever it was installed, how it passed inspection and whatnot. But this is a photo of the panel box. There's 6 circuits available on it, and of that, 4 of them are currently being used, and there were 2 blanks. So we were slated to use the 1 blank for the HVAC units up on the 2nd floor for the library, and the other unit was to supply the electrical for the elevator. At a minimum, to make this function, we would have to bring in a 200 amp service into this meter box. And that cost is $5,550. But looking at the building with future expansions and possible in the future, they are strongly recommending that we go with a 400 amp feed, and they would supply take this box out and put in a new box that would have ample spots for expansion. And that cost would be $13,275. So I am strongly recommending that we go with the option 2. That would provide us to grow into the building with future expansions, putting air conditioning on the 1st floor down the road, and any other additional improvements we look to do in the future. If we don't do that and we only go with the first option, when you want to move to any future expansion, you're then either going to be bringing in a new line or faced with expanding to the 400 amp. So in order to keep this project moving forward, I am asking for council to take some action or direction on this. The Mahoney contractors will be mobilizing on Monday, the 29th, and begin the demo on this work, and coordination the electrical contractor would like to get moving forward. So the HVAC's been making good progress. So if there's any questions that I haven't touched on?
Any recommendations from our in-house electrical engineer?
I talked to Mary about this last night a little bit. Like you said, if you're doing this at your own home, you got a 100 amp service,
you're not gonna put a 150 amp service in, you're gonna put the 200 amp service in it and pay that little bit more money. It's the same thing with this, if there's plans, and I haven't understood completely what the plans are for the building yet, but if there is an AC unit to go into the bottom floor, you're gonna need the extra space anyway, so why pay essentially $6,000 today and then $13,000 in 2 years, and spend $19,000 in total? So yeah, with that, I'll gladly make the motion that we go the recommended route with a 400 amp service.
I'll second.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
And then just some other, and kind of echoing some of the earlier comments, but the engineers provided the cost analysis, so I would like to request that the executive board consider meeting next Tuesday for a meeting to discuss the road program and any other items that would come up, but just keep that moving forward. We get some further movement.
Just in regards to that, I'll get back to everybody on the executive board. I don't know if Tuesday's gonna work. I believe Monday might be a better day. I just have to check with the extra day and 29th, it's the last day in my work schedule. I apologize.
We will meet next week. So that's-
So at some point, just,
You have anything else?
that was all I had.
Mr. York?
Reported on what I indicated, but something came up today that I wanted to discuss with you in executive session about some litigation that you are on the periphery involved in, but could be involved in more actively, and I wanted to talk to you about that in executive session.
Excuse me. Monaca Volunteer Community Outreach Report. Okay.
Good evening. As you can see, the weather's starting to get better, and I can't wait till we can get out on the road cleanup. I know that Cascade and Colonial look really bad. As soon as we can get a couple of days of 50-degree weather, I can get the kids outside again. So we're looking to start there, and then into the planting and everything, probably in April for that, in early May. So that's all where we're at there. And if you have no objection, we'll continue the program with Adelphi Village. And I do know that J.T. Engel has gone on to a different position with juvenile services. I believe he's intake now. And there may be a new officer that would be willing to work with us. So if you have no objection, we'll continue the program this year.
I do have a question. You guys aren't in any way claiming CJ Mansion?
No.
All right. Thank you.
No, Mr. Wilson, I did not feel comfortable taking some of those youth in with the small children there. I figured we were just better to be a little cautious with that.
Appreciate
So we've not done anything at CJ Mansion. If there is something you need, I can arrange for it, but they would be there while the kids are still in the daycare.
No, I completely understand, and I appreciate that. I also want to look forward to if we're having equipment for individuals, putting in an elevator and maintenance and all that. I would hate if they're leaving a lot of that stuff in those rooms too.
The
Stuff
only,
costs a lot of money sometimes.
the only thing where the youth would be involved at CJ Mansion at all would be the outside landscape on the front end of the building, to just kind of keep that cleaned up. Other than that, we're not in the building at all.
Thank you.
Downtown Business Authority.
Okay. I have a question, and I don't know if you can answer this for me this evening. We did not have a quorum this past week for a meeting, but I spoke with Mr. Mulder, kind of filled him in on the background of what the authority has been trying to do over the past few years and what we're hoping to achieve. And I have a question in my mind, and of course he couldn't answer this. Is there any limitation, like if we want to look into the hopes of development for downtown Monaca or anything in that business district, are we permitted to look into information or sources that we could bring back to council? Or what are our boundaries? And like I said, you may not be able to answer that for me tonight, but we don't want to overstep our boundaries either. And this
I
is
can answer that for you. That what you could do as a business authority is dictated by two things. First, the state law that says what downtown business district authorities have the power to do and not do. And secondly, what was in the charter when the downtown business district authority was formed over 20 years ago. In it will be your purpose.
Would there be a way of getting a copy of that to see what this involves?
We should have that here. Should be here.
Okay, all right.
Generally, as I recall, it dealt with loosely any and all development of business within a specified area that comprises the business district.
Or business district.
So if you were to do something that would have an idea of promoting business in the town, there are certain things you could do to do that, but if it called for the passage of ordinances,
I would have to come back here.
would have to come back here. Changes in structures, changes in requirements, zoning, etc. You could make all the recommendations you want, but this body is the one that has to pass them.
Well, I guess my question was, do we have a right to look into these things and make these recommendations to the body?
Generally speaking, I think you do. Yeah. But if you want to know specifically what it is you could do, you could look at that.
That would be a big help. I know we want to move forward and try to be effective, but there's times we feel like our hands are tied, and we get ideas of things that we can do, but how far can we go? That was my question.
Hope I've answered it.
Yes, you have, thank you.
You have anything else?
No, sir, I don't.
Does anybody have any questions for Patty? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Commissioner.
New business. Mary, you want to explain the motion?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to defer to Mr. Jacobin, who'll probably be able to give you a better explanation of what the actual equipment does if somebody has specific questions. I just know it's an analytical reader of some magnitude, and it's for a cost of $5,933.70. But if anyone's curious on the actual specifics of it, Mr. Jacobin can be so kind to answer that.
Questions?
What is it?
This is in anticipation of the new permit that's coming in. The engineer that I spoke with, and this is not directed at Monaca, this is just coming statewide at every municipality. Currently, we're required to monitor 2X twice a week for these two parameters. They are adding a dissolved oxygen parameter to our permit, which we're not required to. They are going to require the borough of Monaca to go 7 days a week now monitoring that our outfall for chlorine residual, pH, and dissolved oxygen. And in order to satisfy that requirement, that's what we're going to have to put in this piece of equipment. It has a USB port, so we'll be able to download this information on a monthly basis in order to satisfy that requirement.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Good.
that computer's maintained in your area, correct?
This analytical device will actually be at a remote location down at the outfall of the treatment plant. It'll be, hopefully we can get the building maintenance technician to help install a shelter around this to protect it from the elements. It'll obviously add to the longevity of the device, but it'll be outside actually, and that's where it'll be located. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes, Kurt. Is this gonna require a computer or anything specific to go along with it
No, nothing more than the laptop I already use.
that you already have?
Yes.
Does it have an alarm?
It does have an alarm.
So if we fall below the residual,
It's not a SCADA system though. It'll-
no, I understand that, but you'll be informed.
It'll just have a visual alarm. I mean, it's equipped to, for an auto dialer. But I don't know if we really need to go that route initially unless it's written in our permits.
What's the time frame DEP gives you to resolve the issue?
That's a good question. Again, I don't know what the permit's gonna exactly read. All I know is, right now, according to the engineer, they are, and this, again, this is not just directed at Monaca only, it's statewide. So it's basically, if we fall below our assigned limits, okay, on this monitoring, it will be a violation. And by the time it gets to that level, to that point anyhow, you're familiar with the flow process. It's too late to correct anyhow, unfortunately.
What time frame do we need? Say we had an auto dialer, somebody gets called out. I mean,
I
fix
mean,
the
it would be,
chlorine flow.
yeah, exactly. If it came in and it said chlorine is too high, or pH is too low, or dissolved oxygen is too low, the only things that we really can adjust are the chlorine and the pH, and that would be chemical addition. Dissolved oxygen is just a parameter that they're adding, saying, we don't want any fish kills, which we're not responsible for in the past anyhow, but again, this is just where the DEP is going.
Could we find out what that time frame would be?
Oh, yeah, like I said. I'm
And in
sure
the
it's
event,
gonna
I
be-
mean, all I'm thinking is, all right, if they give you 2 hours to fix it or whatever, we gotta call somebody out in order to not obtain a fine.
Are you saying fixed it? Are you saying fix the apparatus? Or are you
Not the
saying
apparatus.
correct the
to-
problem?
To correct the problem, to
Correct the
reset the
problem.
chlorine regardless.
Like I
mean,
said, by the time it would reach this analyzer, because everything is based on the outfall of the
Right.
treatment plant. By the time it would read this, it had been a violation already, by that time already, so. Unless you put this up at the headworks,
But it'd have to be up to the chlorinator,
yes,
and the chlorinator's down at the discharge.
exactly.
Mr. Schroeder?
For these, looks like there's 3 probes on the system. Do you know what the lifespan of them are?
Couple years.
And then what's the calibration schedule?
Calibration's gonna be, for the LDO probe, 2 years.
Okay.
And then the pH is once per month, and then the chlorine is once per month.
And do we have an expected cost for calibration?
We would do the calibration.
You would do it
in-house,
yourself?
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, at this time, I need a motion to approve the quote from DAS Group Incorporated in the amount of $5,933.70.
So moved.
Second? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Derek voted no. Passes. You want to explain the next one?
Next one's a motion to approve resolution number 4-15. It's the conditional use hearing approval to erect solar panels on property at Taylor Avenue Reservoir. This is just the legal documentation supporting that we had the hearing, and you're approving it as a conditional use.
Motion? I need a motion on this?
So moved.
Second? Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Old business. Dawn has not had the opportunity to wipe the stuff we've already done off the old business, so we'll be looking at that next week. Okay, Dawn?
Well, I guess so.
Yeah.
No problem there, she's been busy.
Executive committee, Mr. Wilson?
we had a meeting on last Tuesday. The conversation at committee meeting will be discussed in executive session. due to, employees and, wages. CJ Mansion. Janitorial service. I want to discuss it on there.
Thank you. Okay, citizens, comments, complaints, and compliments. Does anybody have anything? Come up, state your name and address. You have to come up to the podium and-
Carol Masters. I live at 426 Pennsylvania Avenue. What I'm complaining about is, and I guess the code enforcer should be here to listen to this, but the Saxon Club. The back end that faces our backyard, all of the siding is coming off. It's flying in our yard. All the back paper is flying in our yard. I was over there cutting some weeds out. It hit me in the head because it was flying loose. I had an appraiser come, and I was gonna sell my property, and they said that's a real detriment for me to be selling my property, to have it look like that. I've talked to people at Saxon Club, they said they're not gonna do anything.
No money. What else you gonna get out of them?
I said, something has to be done. It's terrible looking, I wish somebody would come down and look at it.
Towards the well, when you were down there.
Yeah.
If I may, both Jones were down there.
Yeah, that was last year,
We care about our constituents.
yeah, but I mean.
If I may, not to interrupt you, Officer Hogue has been stepping up. Sorry.
Officer Ho's been stepping up here, taking care of some of these outstanding issues that are gonna keep cropping up. Robert, would you be so kind as to take a look at that down there tomorrow, or first chance you get, and see what?
I mean, it's flying around now loose.
Yeah.
Flipping. And, you know, if I wanna sell my property, I'd have to be a detriment.
Understood.
Yeah,
I
and
believe that property may be under different ownership than this.
it is, I heard it was
So,
bought by a personal individual, and the guy I talked to said that he's not gonna do anything.
Well,
I mean, he's not, and I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, he's not gonna do anything, and I said, well, do I have to call Marty at KDK ATV? And he says, you do whatever you wanna do.
no,
So,
Owen Pello was aware of the situation, he was attempting to address it.
who's he? Who's he?
Owen Pello was our code,
Oh, okay.
building code.
He
Was,
was?
well, he's,
Still is for-
until the end of the month, and then
Oh.
the council's gonna be going in a different direction with that position.
Oh,
And obviously, you know, there was some dead ends that we hit, as you indicated, the financial status that they were in, obviously it wasn't gonna be done under their ownership. It has since transferred due to tax sales and whatnot, so there's a new property owner, and we'll look to enforce.
I mean, shouldn't they, like, they should have insurance, shouldn't insurance cover that, being wind damage or whatever, I mean.
Yeah, well, that's the
and-
past, there's a new owner now, so
Yeah.
we'll have to address it now with the new property, and we'll do our best.
Will you, yeah, please try to do something. And I have one other complaint issue. There's a bus stop right in front of my house, which is fine, I don't have a problem with that. But they always throw their trash right in my yard, like empty bottles, baggage, or, you know, potato chip bags, everything. And there's a telephone pole right there. Is there any way that the town could put a trash thing on the telephone pole? Or the bus company, do I have to
That's something we'll do.
call them, you know, because it's always, you know, it's unbelievable somebody would throw bottles in the front yard, but they do. And,
We'll look into that.
yeah. I think that's all. My main concern though is the Saxon. I mean, it hit me on the head. Luckily it didn't, you know, cut my face or something. It just didn't. Yeah. And,
Yeah, and I spoke to, after that happened, I spoke to the president of the club, and he said that they would take care of it.
no, I talked to him.
Now, they don't own it, so,
No, I talked to him when they owned it.
right.
And he said that he'd look into it. But I don't know who the new owner is, but, I mean, the front of it and the side of it looks fine. It's just the back part in our
They
yard.
did do some work on the front,
Yeah.
I told them to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They never got to the back.
so, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other citizens? Any other citizens? Citizen section is now closed. This time I need a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel and litigation.
I'll make it second.
Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Unanimous.
Kurt, what's your email?
Pardon me?
What's your email?